So tonight I was watching a gentleman by the name of Outdoors with the Morgans. That's I believe his name is Mike, but that's his channel. And there's this video he made about, I want to say 7 months ago, if I'm remembering right, about him walking away from his job to basically do his side gig full time, and which is basically, homesteading and firewood, YouTube, stuff like that. And it kind of made me think about my own story, not that it's particularly special or anything, but a lot of the sentiment he put in that video is stuff that I really resonate with. And it's made me think about how I've been doing in this past couple months, pretty much since the business has been started. Dogs on Woodworks, anyways. And how things for the past couple of months have just kind of stagnated. And over time, I've kind of come to realize why they have stagnated. I'd spend a lot of time watching YouTube videos, movies, shows, stuff like that, just generally being unproductive and putting stuff out here kind of on the back burner, even though I would constantly tell myself, I gotta get this done, gotta get this done. And it made me realize I've kind of lost sight of why I started doing this. When I was in high school, I didn't really, I was not the model student by any means. Ask my mother. Never did my homework. Somehow I was, smart enough to memorize pretty much everything in class and pass the test. And just enough to get a passing grade most of the time. And I remember when I graduated high school, looking at that last report card or whatever it was called back then, and seeing I had something like a 2.7 or a 2.8 GPA. I was that kind of student. A lot of people in high school, I'm a millennial, I was born in '94, and pretty much all of our schooling years, we were told, you got to go to college, you got to get a degree, and if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. The whole, yeah. And they never tell you in school that there's other ways of doing things. I know there's been a lot of movement, especially in recent years, to push people towards the trades, with the college student debt crisis and stuff like that. A lot of times, trade school, in fact, most of the time, trade school, it's cheaper. It's more of a hands-on education versus just taking classes with professors and stuff like that. And you get paid better. And the jobs, you come out of a trade school with something like welding, small engine repair, large engine repair, any sort of automotive degree, fabrication, architectural, engineering, anything like that, you've got a pretty darn good shot at making life work. I think a lot more so than the college guys going to school for arts and music and education, stuff like that. And I'm not knocking those degrees. Most of my friends, especially back when I did music, a lot of my friends went to school for music or some sort of audiovisual degree and just a ton of student debt. But they never really talk about the third option, which is don't go to college, don't go to trade school, just get a job straight out of high school, which is what I did. And it was a struggle. The first couple jobs I had were just really bad fits. I remember one of the first ones I really remember was a job in a warehousing, kind of a warehousing. It was like a produce packing place. The first and only day there, and in fact, I didn't even spend the whole day there. Once lunch hit, I was out of there. I was gone. I knew that wasn't for me. But what we would do, we would take these giant sacks of potatoes, stack them on a pallet, and saran wrap the outside. And me being the green guy, I had to stack with everybody else, but then I got to be the one to saran wrap it. It was just one of those jobs, man, where you get like $9, $10 an hour, but they tell you, oh, it's good money because there's mandatory overtime, and those guys there were working 70, 80 hours a week. And that's just, in my opinion, that's no way to live. It's just no way to live. Then after that, I went to a plastics manufacturing facility, and it was all injection molded plastics, these big machines. You'd see a big, like a tube of hot plastic come down out of a nozzle, and there would be these two big heated and waxed molds that would come together, and they'd squish it into whatever shape you needed. And I had to leave that because the last day I was there, we were making the Tempur-Pedic bed frames, the plastic part of it. And what you had to do is after it got molded, you have to cut the part out of the mold. And I just couldn't do it. I just wasn't strong enough. Me, my 6'2", I was thinner back then. I was in better shape then. And I couldn't do it. And I think a couple months or a year after that, I got a job at pretty much a box making factory, and I actually really liked that job. It just didn't pay enough. I was living in an apartment, $609 a month for rent, and I was only making $11.50 an hour when I left, and my truck crapped out on me. I had to buy a new car, and between that and the other bills, I was losing money every month, and I remember distinctly the time I realized that wasn't worth it for me was I was a machine operator. I led a crew, and we're talking a machine that's like 3 times bigger than this whole building. This building's a 32 by 48. It might even be bigger than that. But during shift change, myself, the operator for second shift, and then the operator from first shift, we would go over whatever order we were running. And we had an older machine, so it would have these quirks with different orders, so we would talk about that, what was working, what wasn't. And I just remember me and the first shift operator were talking, and the plant manager walks up front and sees us talking to each other and says, "Hey, what are you guys doing? What are you just standing around for? Get to work." And both of us just kind of stared at him for like a good 30 seconds. Like, did you really just... And I told myself, being treated like that for that amount of money or for any amount of money is not okay. When you're just a number in a system, and the only thing that matters to those people working up front is the numbers coming out of the shipping dock. I will never do that again. I will never be an employee ever again. And I had two jobs after that. One was a trucking job. The less said about that, the better, honestly. That was a lot of money, but it was a lot of stress, and you were never home. And the equipment, the brand new trucks, brand new, were never reliable, ever. And as a company driver, you just wouldn't make what they said you should be making. By the way, if anyone sees those ads from Schneider or Rail or JB Hunt, CR England, stay away. Just don't do it. The yearly salary or whatever they say you're going to make, that's not what you're going to make. If you're going to do trucking, my advice is find somebody who owns a fleet of about 4 or 5. Have them, if they're good enough to lend their time to get another driver, teach you how to drive a truck and get a CDL. Do it that way. And you will make more money and be happier with those guys than you ever will with any of the big companies. But anyways, I left that job because it was too much stress for the money. And after that, I had some stupid janitorial position at a local, there's this company in Toledo that would, I think they had 3 or 4 music venues. And my job would be, it was a part-time gig, but my job would be to come in the day after and, clean up, get all the beer and pop off the floor and stuff like that. And that is the only job I have ever been fired from. Because the management there was just really shady and they weren't making money, so they had to let a bunch of people go. So after that moment there was like, I'm never doing this. I'm done being an employee. Never again will I ever be an employee. And I think 2020, April 2020, yeah. April 2020 finally had the opportunity to put a dream that I've had for a very long time into practice, and that was woodworking. I had about $1,200 to spend, so we bought $1,200 worth of Harbor Freight tools in the mail, and I remember I was so excited when that big box showed up. I have some of those tools, like I have the jigsaw. I still have the clamps somewhere. But yeah, eventually I worked and I upgraded my stuff. Started doing Instagram and YouTube and all that. I had experience doing Instagram from my previous self-employed attempt, which was a photography company, a film photography company. Really, really niche market. But I had experience doing that, so, I knew how to do photography and stuff like that. And I took a crack at it, and you guys pretty much have already seen the rest of that story. But after a while of doing it these projects would just be, it was very feast or famine. You would either be really frustrated looking on the internet for opportunities for more projects and more sales. I would come out here and I would make stuff that would just never sell, like Christmas ornaments, Halloween decorations. There's even a table up there somewhere that I made out of my own money. I thought if I had enough inventory, people would come out and buy it. And for the most part, nobody did. But I got really, really lucky with the custom furniture market. It started with my friend Dakota's Entertainment Center. And buddy, if you're watching this, I cannot thank you enough for the success that brought me. That was my first real big, I had done the 2 chicken tractors before that, but that was my first big professional, made out of hardwood, install, finish, everything project that I did. And boy, I remember doing that project really, really took it out of me. Because you'd spend 10 or 12 hours out here every single day just until you get the project done. And then afterwards, once you got it all installed and you got paid and everything, you go on looking for the next thing. So you'd spend a couple days doing that, and then you get lucky again and get another big furniture project. And I guess that eventually led me to the desire to do the molding thing. I got that one custom color matching job, and that one job was enough to pay for that machine, the dust collector, and setting up the 220 volt to run the molder. And yeah, that's pretty much how it got here today. And then also the awesome relationship that I have with Metabo HPT. I just got this out because it's filthy, it needs to be cleaned, but I thought it looked cool. And by the way, I have already had this new tool for a couple weeks now. I'm just waiting for Metabo to tell me when the release date is, so we can get a review out and stuff like that. It's going to take up. That tool is going to take over the jointing responsibilities from this router. I'll still do backouts with it. It's not going away by any means, but doing it with that tool is way quicker than making a ton of sawdust with a router and a straight bit and edge guide, stuff like that. But back to the outdoors with the Morgans thing. It just made me realize that I'd really lost my vision for what I want to accomplish out here. And I keep going back to that phrase, I will never be an employee again. Ever. And I kind of lost sight of that. I just, once you lose a vision for something that you're doing for yourself, you don't want to do it anymore. Because why be out here if you don't know why you're out here? It's not like a job where you just set an alarm, okay, I got to get up and go to work. One of the hardest parts about being a small business owner is something like this, where you're the only employee out here. You don't have to set an alarm if you don't want to. I don't set an alarm. That's going to change, but and when you don't have that structure in your life that you've had your entire life since school, you think about that. Since school until your job now, you've been setting an alarm, getting up to do the one thing that you don't have a choice, and you just do it. But when you're self-employed, they all talk about all the freedom, and you can work when you want to. If you don't want to work that day, you don't have to. And yeah, you can do it that way, but it's going to bite you. And it bit me. So, in order to get that vision back, and I still very much feel the same way, I'm never going to be an employee ever again. But in order to get that vision back, you have to have, in my opinion, a goal. So what's the goal for me then? After a whole long-winded explanation, what is the goal for me? Well, there's a lot of things I want to do. And I don't have some big lofty, I want to buy some big piece of property and live there happily ever after. Not that type of goal. I like the smaller manageable chunks that you can do. So, besides never being an employee ever again, let's move over to the whiteboard and I'll show you. Okay guys, here is the list of some of the things. Now, Metabo HPT makes this nice oscillating multi-tool, and I'm going to take the multi part of that name very seriously, and this is going to be my pointer. Thank you, Metabo. Actually, no, I bought this one. Yeah, I bought this one. Anyways, this is a very specific yet generalized list of some goals that I want to accomplish. And as you can see, pretty much everything here is some piece of equipment or something. I have it on good authority. First, let me say, the goal here is I want to diversify the stuff that I'm going to be doing. I'm not just going to be woodworking. And part of that is I'm tired of the feast and famine thing that this whole pandemic has brought upon the world. So I figure the more things I'm doing, the less famine we're going to have, if you catch my drift. And thanks to YouTube, I've gotten a lot of bugs to try some things. So we're going to try some things. So after doing all my research, I've decided probably the first thing that we want to do would be firewood. There's quite a bit of deadfall out here, and while deadfall is not the best firewood, I know there's plenty of tree services around here that would be willing to give me their logs or sell me their logs from their limb cuts and all this stuff that doesn't get sold to sawmills and stuff like that. Because usually what happens is that's what they usually do with it. They either chip it up or they sell it to firewood makers. So the saw, I've chosen a nice one that's right in the middle. The Stihl MS362CM that is a pro saw, but it's not something like an MS500. You break your back every time you bring it out to use it. So I wanted something that was tough enough to take care of the ash out here, but small enough to help take care of, we have a lot of arborvitae out in the windbreak that is just falling down because they're planted too close to each other. And there's a couple pines out there that have been blown over that are leaning on top of each other that we're going to have to figure out some way of pulling those down so those can be cut up. But the reason I know this is at least a plausibly good idea is because if you drive out in the country out here, and I'm in Northwest Ohio, pretty much every other house, sometimes even more, has something called a biomass boiler or a outdoor boiler. And what that is it's a big, think of it as a wood furnace that's kept outside, and there's a coil in there or some sort of pump that takes the heat from burning firewood and transfers it into water, and that's how people heat their homes. The water from that boiler goes into their house, and there's a bunch of pipes and stuff that is run underneath the floor, and that's what heats their house. And a lot of people also, that's how they get their hot water. So there's definitely a market for firewood out here, and to my knowledge, there's really not a good supplier in my area that I know of that's selling firewood by the cord or whatever for those types of applications. And I'm not really near any big cities to be able to supply like restaurants and stuff like that who cook with firewood. But I think there's enough biomass heaters in the area and people who want to go camping and have fireplaces, what have you. So we get the 362. We also get Stihl's Pro Splitting Axe. I don't know if that'll be the splitting axe that I want to use for forever, but you know, it's a damn good quality splitting axe. It's kind of pricey, but I don't buy cheap crap because I learned my lesson with Harbor Freight. Now, I'm going to need your guys' help because I am not a logger. I've never run a chainsaw in my life. So I need to know, what are some good starter chaps? You know, I don't want to be that guy that's just wearing jeans out with the chainsaw and gets kicked back or isn't watching and he gets his leg cut off or gashed. So what's some good starter chaps? I don't want to spend $200. Just something that won't be horrendously uncomfortable and something that'll give me a good amount of protection. And I'm also looking for some gloves recommendations, especially for splitting, because I'm not going to get a log splitter at first. I'm just going to do it at hand because we don't have enough. My plan is to cut up what we need to get rid of in the tree lines around here and just, see if I can sell 4 or 5 cords. And if we can do that, I know the business is at least sort of viable. So from there, we would go, buying logs from tree services and stuff like that. And eventually, I found this company that I've really fallen in love with their equipment. I've looked at a lot of these companies. But I'm not going to get some big firewood processor at first. But they have a splitter. It's called their Alpha 6. And I'll probably get some sort of conveyor for that. And that's about a $20,000 setup right there. It's pretty darn expensive. But once we have that all going, hopefully I become busy enough to have to be able to hire somebody. Whether that be a firewood guy or someone who comes out here and does woodworking with me or someone who floats around with me, whatever. Probably going to be setting up a little... I'm going to put this thing down, it's heavy. Probably going to be setting up like a shack or something near the end of the driveways with a pay box, and people can come and pay $20 for a rack or $5 for a bundle. That's a pretty common setup. And just see what happens. I know pretty much for a fact that I'll at least be able to make my money back from buying these 2 things. If I can at least do that, even if it is a little bit of a struggle, hey, I'm not out any money buying the saw and the axe, and the chaps and the gloves and all that. It's something I've wanted to do for a really long time, and I wasn't really sure. I'm still in the maybe phase with this, but I have picked out some equipment if I do decide to go with it, and that's sawmilling. I was looking at Wood-Mizer for a little bit, kind of decided against them because... well, for reasons. So I decided either an AC 3667, or if they make the 44-inch version with a 2-inch blade and the same engine, I'll probably go for that. Because we do have some bigger trees out here. Northwest Ohio is mostly hardwoods. But we'll get that sawmill. We'll get the 40-horse edger to go with it. And we're going to need I'm thinking a skid steer. It'll probably be the best use of money at that point. Now I have this JCB 3TS8T, that's their teleskid. I really like what that thing can do. It's extremely expensive for a skid steer, but I think that would be a worthwhile purchase, just from what I've seen. And after that we would need a kiln and probably a truck and a trailer and stuff we're talking, this is very long term. This is a little bit more than $250,000 investment right here between all of the stuff that would be necessary for this. And the last thing, I would like to get this channel to the point where I can monetize it, not because of the money, but because I want to prove to myself that I can do this social media thing to the point where you could theoretically make money. And I'm not planning on making YouTube my career. This is just something, I've never done social media just purely for social media. I've always done social media just because I thought it was fun to share what I was doing, maybe help teach some people some things. But that's about it. I've never... the only thing that's really come out of the social media, besides some pretty good friends, is the relationship I have with Metabo HPT. I get to test and review their tools. And that's in and of itself is a pretty cool gig. And it's so weird being able to know what's coming in the future market like months before any of you guys do. And it's even weirder still that I have to keep all that a secret, but it's a cool relationship, so yeah. But to get there, the bare minimum that YouTube requires for monetization is 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours in the past 12 months. And you can't be violating their community, whatever. But I don't do anything controversial on this channel, other than maybe, God forbid, using trees for their wood, but that's neither here nor there. Woodworking channels generally tend to do pretty well on YouTube. Not nearly as well as the gaming channels, but there's probably a good list of at least 50 or so that are, maybe even more. I'm probably vastly underestimating that number. The amount of channels that are monetized out there that have to do with woodworking, whether that be Stumpy Nubs or Cat's Moses, whatever. But yeah, this is the next 3 or 4 years. This will be happening probably within a month or two. Getting this saw and the axe and feeling out this market. But this huge chunk of change right here, that's gonna take a while. But I feel like if I don't have these big goals, I'm just not gonna get anywhere. So, yeah. Well, if you guys are still here, I want to thank you for sticking around. I know there's probably only going to be about 2 or 3 of you, maybe, that watch the whole thing all the way through, but I know a lot of the past couple of videos have been mostly just me talking. I want to kind of shift away from that and mostly make videos of just me actually doing stuff. And I want to at least do a couple of videos a week. I think if I can hold myself to that, I can hold myself to the other stuff. As long as this doesn't get in the way of actually getting stuff done. But yeah. So there'll probably be a video out tomorrow, maybe. Tonight is, I gotta think, Thursday. You guys will be seeing this Friday when it uploads. So Saturday should be the other video, which is what I'm going to be doing tomorrow after I go to bed. So if you made it this far, like I said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.